They don't fight each other. Not because they can't, because they agreed not to. 4 families, 4 different kinds of power, each one strong enough to destroy everything if they wanted to. So they made a rule. Each generation, one chosen. And when you're chosen, you can claim anything, as long as no one else already has it. That's the balance. Not fairness, not peace, just lines. And everyone knows you don't cross them, because once something is claimed, it's done. No negotiation, no challenge, no second chances. That's how the system survives. That's how it stays predictable. That's how everyone knows their place. But every system has a weakness, not in the rules, in the people who think they're above them. There was one generation where someone decided the rules didn't apply. He wasn't reckless, he wasn't emotional, he was calculated. And that's what made it dangerous. Because he didn't try to break the system. He tried to override it. He believed his power ranked higher than the agreement, higher than the line, higher than the consequence. So he stepped forward and claimed something that was already taken. Not land, not money, not influence. A person. And in that moment, everything should have collapsed. Because that's what happens. You cross that line, and it's war. Instant, unavoidable, final. Everyone there knew it. You could feel it. That shift, that silence, that moment where everything stops, right before it breaks. But this time, it didn't. Because one person didn't move, didn't react, didn't acknowledge the threat. No fear, no resistance, nothing. And that's what stopped it. Not power, not authority, not force. Just someone who didn't recognize the rules. And in that moment, they realized something. For the first time, the system only works on people who are part of it. They didn't react. That's not how systems like this work. They observe, because reaction means something already went wrong. And nothing in this system is supposed to go wrong. So they went back. Not to the moment it happened, but before it. Because nothing breaks without warning. That's the rule. Not written, not spoken, just understood. There's always a signal. Something small. Something easy to ignore. Something that doesn't feel important. Until it is. And that's where they started looking. Not for the obvious, not for the violation, for the moment, right before it. The part no one pays attention to. Because that's where mistakes hide and patterns begin. So they reviewed everything, every conversation, every movement, every moment that felt normal. Because normal is where it hides best. And the more they looked, the more uncomfortable it became. Because nothing stood out. Nothing screamed for attention. Nothing demanded to be seen. Which meant it was placed that way, carefully, deliberately. So it would pass, so it would blend, so it would be ignored. And that's when they realized something. This didn't start with the violation. It didn't start with him. It started earlier, much earlier, before anyone thought to look, before anyone had a reason to, before the system felt threatened. And that's when they found it. Not a move, not a plan, not even a decision, a moment, small, casual, easy to dismiss. He said something, no emphasis, no weight behind it, just a joke. And no one reacted. No one questioned it. No one stopped to ask what he meant. Because they already knew who he was. Or at least, they thought they did. The one who jokes, the one who talks, the one who says things that don't matter. So they let it pass, like they always did. But now, they were looking at it differently. Not as a joke, not as noise, as information. And that changed everything. Because the moment didn't stand alone, it connected to another moment, and another, and another, each one just as small, just as easy to ignore. But together, they formed something else. Not randomness, not coincidence, structure. And that's when the system had a problem. Because structure means intention. And intention means this wasn't an accident. This wasn't reaction. This wasn't someone figuring it out along the way. This was placed, step by step, moment by moment, hidden in plain sight, and accepted because no one thought it mattered. He didn't hide it. He didn't disguise it. He didn't even protect it. He said it, out loud, more than once. And every time, they ignored it. Because it came from him. Because it didn't fit. Because it didn't feel important. Until it was. And by the time they understood what they were looking at, it was already too late. Because this didn't start with a violation. It didn't start with a signal. It started with something much smaller. Something no one thought to track. Something no one thought to log. Something no one believed was real. And that's how it got through. Not by force, not by power, but by being dismissed. And that's the part they missed. Not the moment everything changed, but the moment it began. They didn't miss it. That's what bothered them. At first, it felt easier to believe that something slipped through, that something got past them, that someone made a mistake. But the more they reviewed it, the harder that became to accept. Because it wasn't hidden. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't even difficult to understand. It was said, clearly, repeated, placed in front of them more than once. And every time, they heard it. They just didn't register it because of who it came from. That's the difference. They didn't ignore the message. They ignored the source. And once that decision is made, everything that follows becomes predictable. He could say anything, reveal anything, disclose everything, and it would all land the same way, as noise, as background, as something not worth tracking, because he didn't fit the profile. Not serious enough, not structured enough, not controlled enough. So when he spoke, they filtered it automatically, without thinking, without questioning, without checking if they were wrong. And that's where the system failed. Not in the rules, not in the structure, in the assumption. Because the system depends on recognition, on identifying what matters and what doesn't. And once something gets labeled, it stops being evaluated. It stops being tracked. It stops being seen. And that's exactly where he operated. Not outside the system, inside it, inside the blind spot. And that's what made it effective. Because he didn't need to hide anything. He just needed to be consistent. Say it the same way, in the same tone, in the same environment, until it became normal, until it became expected, until it became invisible. And once it became invisible, it became safe. Safe to say, safe to repeat, safe to build on. And that's when it stopped being a moment and became a pattern. Not obvious, not loud, not aggressive, just present, across time, across conversations, across interactions that no one thought to connect. Until they did. And when they finally lined it up, it was all there. Every piece, every step, every disclosure, not hidden, not buried, not encrypted, just dismissed. And that's when something else became clear. He wasn't just speaking, he was aligning, not randomly, not emotionally, deliberately, with someone real, someone valid, someone the system would recognize if it had been paying attention. And that's where everything shifted. Because now, this wasn't just a missed signal, this was a confirmed one. And once confirmed, it couldn't be undone. Because the rules are clear. Disclosure doesn't require belief. It requires acknowledgement, and whether they accepted it or not. He gave it, more than once, which meant it counted. And now, they had a problem, because the fall guy was never alone. He never was. They just didn't see it, because they weren't looking for it. And by the time they were, it was already in place, already aligned, already valid. And there was nothing they could do about it, because the system doesn't protect you from what you ignore. It enforces what you allow. And they allowed it, every step of the way.